The first document and the very most important document to submit with your claim is the shipment showing that 24D and 245T were indeed shipped to Panama. And I have them from 1958 to 1977. And after 1977, it changed to growth regulators. And you'll see that on a different document called the FT446. Still the Schedule B on the U.S. Bureau of the Census, U.S. exports, but it's called FT446 for the 80s. So if you were there in the 80s, they also shipped herbicides called plant growth regulators. And as you'll see in this evidence, plant growth regulators, I believe, are synonymous, but they are herbicides, and they were still shipping herbicides to Panama. They also were shipping still 2,4-D, which was the half of Agent Orange, 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. And you'll see in these documents, there is no difference in the dioxin between the commercial and the tactical herbicides. Document number 2 is the Charles Bartlett testimony. And in this testimony for a veteran by the name of Donald Jones, who was one of the first people that I know of that won for Panama, he was a Fort Detrick employee, and he would have known where Agent Orange was shipped because they're the ones that shipped it. He says in his testimony, Mr. Bartlett claims in the late 1960s, several hundred drums were shipped to Panama, and of that material in Panama, a smaller amount was used in testing programs. All of the material was originally shipped, at least the bill of lading, called for shipment to Fort Clayton in the Canal zone. And at the end of that testing program, a quantity of a number of 55-gallon drums were left in Panama extensively under the control of Fort Clayton, and so that those drums remained in Panama for an indefinite period and were never shipped out of Panama, were left there permanently in Panama and available for use for anybody who needed it, because at the time there was no idea that there was anything harmful about Agent Orange. And so they asked, so it was known to be Agent Orange that was shipped to Panama? And he says, yes, it was shipped. We shipped it from Fort Detrick. We shipped it to Panama. And it was in the typical black drum with the orange stripe, and it was for our testing program under ARPA order number 423. ARPA is Advanced Research Projects Agency, which was funding these tests, research and development program at that time. So we shipped Agent Orange to Panama. And here is a picture that was taken in spring of 2020 that was given to the Secretary of the VA by Eric, and he was down in Panama for a different purpose and saw these barrels and took a picture. They're in front of quarters at Fort Sherman, and there were about 9 barrels he witnessed. And they have what appears to be on this front barrel. You can see there used to be some kind of tag that listed the contents of the barrel. They have an orange stripe on them. They seem to be old barrels. They might have been the ones that Mr. Bartlett spoke about leaving behind in Panama to be used for vegetation control. Document number 3 talks about all the chemicals. The pesticide review was kept over the years, in 1952 to 1976. I don't know if they had it before 1952, but they talk about the 40s in here also. But I think the first one was in 52. At least at this link that you're going to click on, you'll go and see 1952 to 1976. And what the pesticide review was, it was kept by the Federal Committee on Pest Control, and it kept track of the production and the sales of all the chemicals. And it talks about the herbicide sales, and talks about military posts throughout the country use herbicides for controlling weeds and other undesirable plant growths. It talks about 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T, and it said that the domestic disappearance United States from 1959 to 69, and when you look at the shipment records for 59 to 69, you'll see that it went to Panama. Domestic disappearance, it says here for number 2, it says includes military shipments abroad. So we know that 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T from 1959 to 1969 went to military shipments abroad. And if you look at the shipment records, you'll see on the same document, U.S. Commerce, which this one references also these documents, that this is how it was shipped on the FT410 through the U.S. Commerce exports. And you'll see on that same document, 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T technical brand shipped to both Panama and to Vietnam. These disappearance figures, however, include the military shipments to Vietnam. So these guys who put out this pesticide review report kept track of all the cells and reported on it from the Schedule B of the U.S. Commerce shipments of 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T. So you can click on this link right here, and you can go to the full document for 52 to 76. Document number 4 is the U.S. Air Force technical report written by Alvin Young, captain of the U.S. Air Force at the time. And the report is on the toxicology, environmental fate, and human risk of herbicide orange and its associated dioxin. Nowhere in this report does it say anything about tactical herbicide. And later in the documents on Panama, you'll see that it talks about tactical herbicide being different than the commercial herbicide that was shipped everywhere. But we just saw in the pesticide reviews that they say that the stuff used in Vietnam, which is being called Agent Orange or tactical herbicide, and now Dr. Young says it's different than what was used everywhere else. And we see in the pesticide review the government reporting that not to be true, that it was exactly the same. In fact, in this report, in Dr. Young's report in 1978, on page B3, and I put just that page down here so you can scroll right to that, he lists Dr. Young as a captain when he wrote this report, I believe. Let's see, yes, he was a captain in the U.S. Air Force. Okay, I'll go back down. Okay, so I've downloaded, I put up one page of his above report just to show you what I was talking about. On page V3 of his report in 1978, he writes that this United States production and use of 2,4,5-D herbicide for the period 61 through 69. That is the information he's getting off of the pesticide review report that is above. So that period, 61 through 69, he's listing the rainbow herbicides that were used in Vietnam: green, pink, purple, and orange. And he says they're shipped from 61 through 69. And as we see in the pesticide review, they're shipped through the U.S. Commerce. Here he says the production and export data were from the pesticide review 1970. So if you go back to the pesticide review in 1970, you'll see 2,4-D and 2,4,5-T was shipped to Vietnam. And you'll see that same number, the 5120620, I think it is, by 1970, on the FT410 U.S. Commerce records. That same item is shipped to Panama and to Vietnam. And there is no difference, according to many documents, even Dr. Young's own testimony earlier in life. Document number 5 is the Panama Canal's aquatic weed problem by the chief of the dredging division, named J.S. Hearn at Panama Canal Company. I talked about him in my book. He went in 1948 to Washington, D.C., and said, hey, the hydrilla are interfering with the operation of the Panama Canal. And we need something to kill the hydrilla in Gatun Lake. And so DC told him, use 2,4-D. And it just came out. And that was the same year 2,4,5-T started shipping. And 2,4-D was used in Gatun Lake beginning in 1948 and probably still today to keep the hydrilla down so that the ships, it doesn't interfere with shipping. Here's a picture from the Panama Review in 1968, and that was the same year that Charles Bartlett said that herbicides were left behind or shipped to Panama and were left behind. It's from the 1968 Panama Review. I don't remember which month. I think this was August, but I'm not sure. Can't remember. I colorized it because it was black and white, but these men are spraying herbicides from canisters in their boat in Gatun Lake. Download number 6 is also from the Panama Canal Review bulletin of 1958, and they were spraying the swamps as well. And we know these chemicals were available in 58. They talk about another chemical here, dieldrin. It was an insecticide that they used regularly. So they were spraying it like this, and all of this is going anywhere, drifting. And while we lived there, we all saw spraying going on all over. I mean, the DDT trucks came through our neighborhoods in the evenings. They sprayed, backpack sprayers sprayed all around our quarters, our offices, our barracks, and the swamps were sprayed as well.